was my first year of college, and I had just finished unpacking all my stuff into the dorm room. My parents had said their goodbyes and left a few hours earlier, and that weird mix of excitement and loneliness started to kick in. Later that same day, my roommate finally showed up. The moment he walked in, I knew something was off. The guy looked awkward, like painfully awkward. I stood up, smiled, and said, "Hey, I'm Dan," holding out my hand to shake his. And he just stared at my arm for a second, like he didn't really get what I was doing. Then he let out this short, nervous laugh and finally reached out, giving me what I can only describe as a dead fish handshake. I had to ask for his name because he didn't even bother telling me. He said his name was Dale. I tried to make small talk. You know, the usual stuff, where he's from, what he's majoring in, but he only answered with short yeahs and no's, sometimes letting out this weird little laugh that didn't match what was being said. Within minutes, we were both sitting on our beds, silently scrolling through our laptops, pretending to look busy. I remember thinking, great, my first year of college and I get stuck with the world's most awkward roommate. But awkward didn't even begin to cover it. Because soon, I'd learned that there was something much darker about Dale. That first night in the dorms felt strange from the start. I had just met some of the other kids on my floor. They seemed cool, easy to talk to, and it actually made me feel better about moving away from home. But when I got back to my room after walking around campus, Dale was still sitting in the same exact position as before, staring at his laptop like a statue. I tried saying, "What's up, Dale?" but of course, no answer. It was around 9:30, and since I didn't have anything else to do, I turned off my lamp and got into bed. The room stayed lit by the glow of his screen for hours. I heard him typing and clicking until almost 3 in the morning. When he finally closed his laptop, I fell asleep right away, exhausted. But less than an hour later, I woke up. The blinds were open and moonlight filled the room. That's when I saw him. Dale, sitting on the edge of his bed, just staring straight at me. My stomach dropped. I whispered, "Dale, what the hell are you doing?" He paused, then whispered back, "Sorry," and slowly lay down. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, I woke up and noticed Dale was gone. It actually surprised me because I was pretty sure this was the first time he had left the room since he moved in. It was Saturday, the first Saturday of the year, and the whole campus was buzzing with orientation events. Everyone was excited, meeting new people, exploring clubs, all that stuff. While my group was walking past the campus gardens, I heard a couple of students ahead of me whisper, "What's that kid doing in there?" Naturally, I looked over, and my stomach dropped a little when I saw who they were talking about. It was Dale. He was crouched in the dirt behind some bushes, literally rubbing the bark of a tree with his hand, just staring at it like he was in a trance. The orientation leader didn't seem to notice, but if she had, I'm pretty sure she would have said something. I didn't know what to do, so I just kept walking, pretending I hadn't seen him. The two students were still whispering, so I awkwardly said, "Yeah, that's my roommate," kinda hoping to break the tension and maybe start a normal conversation. They both looked at me like they felt bad and said, "Dude, sorry," before laughing nervously. I wasn't even sure if it was okay to laugh, but we all did anyway. It was weird, but at least that moment helped me make a couple of friends, and we ended up making plans to hang out later that night. When I got back to the dorm, I found out the school had approved my request for a new roommate. I felt relieved, like things were finally getting better. That night I went out to meet the two friends I'd made, and for the first time I actually enjoyed myself. But when I came back, Dale was sitting in the desk chair, completely still, facing the door. I said, "Hey, what's up?" And he replied flatly, Nothing. I sat down and opened my laptop, only to realize all my emails and folders had been opened. My heart sank. I asked, "Dale, did you go through my computer?" He instantly shouted, "No!" Too quickly, too loud. I knew he was lying, but I didn't dare push it. That night I was getting ready for bed and reached into my drawer to grab my pajamas, but something fell off. Everything had been moved around like someone had been digging through my stuff. I tried to ignore it, reminding myself I'd be gone for good tomorrow once my new room was ready. But around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of a zipper. My heart started pounding. I sat up and saw Dale crouch on the floor, going through my bag. I turned on the lamp, the light catching his face as he froze mid-move. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked. He looked up and said calmly, "I think you took my toothbrush by mistake." It was such a weak excuse, but somehow it made my skin crawl even more. I knew he was lying. Something about him wasn't just awkward anymore. It was dangerous. The next day, I finally met my new roommate. Same building, different room, and right away, things felt better. He wasn't super outgoing, but compared to Dale, he was a breath of fresh air. That Sunday night, after chatting for a while about classes and random stuff, we both turned off the lights and went to bed. I remember feeling calm for the first time since moving in. But around 2 or 3 a.m., I woke up to this strange clicking sound. It wasn't steady, just a soft click every few seconds. At first I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was a loose floorboard or something outside. But as the sound kept going, curiosity got the better of me. I got out of bed and started scanning the room, trying to find where it was coming from. Then I realized it wasn't inside. It was coming from the other side of the door. The hallway light was always on, so when I looked through the peephole, I could clearly see the top of someone's head. They were standing right outside our door, facing it, their head tilted down, so I couldn't see their face. My stomach dropped as I realized what that sound was. The faint metal clicks weren't random. Whoever was out there was trying to unlock our door. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called campus police, whispering into the receiver while keeping my eyes on the door. They showed up in less than 5 minutes, lights flashing through the window, and that was the first moment I actually felt safe enough to open the door. When I stepped out, I froze. 2 officers were standing there, and between them was Dale. Handcuffed, his face blank, eyes locked on me like he didn't even recognize me. My stomach turned cold. I told the officers everything, that he was my old roommate, that I'd switched dorms after catching him going through my things, and now he'd tried to break into my new room. They led him away, but I couldn't shake the thought. How long had he been standing there before I woke up? I never saw Dale again after that night. Maybe he got suspended, maybe expelled. Honestly, I never cared to find out. I just wanted to move on and finish college like a normal student. And for the most part, I did. But every now and then, especially when I'm alone in my room late at night, I catch myself thinking about him. About that quiet clicking sound on the doorknob. The way his eyes looked when the cops took him away. It still sends chills down my spine. College was supposed to be about new beginnings, but for me, it started with a nightmare I'll never forget. I went to Binghamton University for 2 years, and pretty early on I found my crew. A tight group of friends who were always down to hang out. Most weekends we'd go out, party a little, just normal college stuff. But one Friday night in October, when nothing big was happening, 3 of us decided to do something different. We grabbed a few beers and headed out to the nature preserve by the lake. A quiet spot most students didn't even know existed. There was this small clearing on the far side, perfect for a little fire, hidden from campus security and anyone else who might care. It was our secret hangout, a place where we could talk about life, laugh, and just be ourselves. That night started off like any other chill bro chat night, but none of us had any idea how wrong things were about to go. As the night went on, time seemed to blur. The beer was kicking in, and the three of us were laughing so hard that one of my friends actually fell back into the pile of leaves, clutching his stomach. That's when the other one suddenly stopped laughing and whispered, "Shh." The change in his tone made my stomach drop. We all froze, listening. And then we heard it. The faint crunching of leaves and branches coming from somewhere out in the dark. At first we thought maybe it was campus police doing their weekend patrols, so we panicked a little and tossed our bottles into the lake, hoping to hide the evidence. We were all underage after all. My buddy shoved the rest of the beers into his backpack while I tried to calm down, but my heart was already racing. Maybe it was just the alcohol, but the woods suddenly felt different. Too quiet, too heavy. The crackling fire that once felt cozy now made us feel exposed, like a glowing target for whoever, or whatever, was out there. The thing is, that clearing was so deep in the woods, hardly anyone ever came that far in. So if it wasn't campus security, then who was walking toward us? At first, it sounded like just one person moving through the woods, the soft crunch of leaves getting closer and closer. Then, snap, a branch cracked somewhere nearby, loud enough to make all of us freeze. My heart jumped into my throat. None of us were exactly the tough guy type, so we didn't have that one friend who'd shout out, "Hey, who's there?" Instead, we just sat there in tense silence, whispering and shushing each other, hoping it would all stop, but it didn't. The sound started circling us. Slow footsteps, branches breaking, leaves shifting, like whoever was out there was walking around our little fire pit in a half circle, keeping just far enough away that we couldn't see them. It felt straight out of the Blair Witch Project. The flickering firelight suddenly didn't feel warm anymore. It felt like a spotlight, exposing us while something hid just beyond the darkness. We tried to laugh it off at first, pretending it was nothing, but I couldn't shake the feeling crawling up my spine. My gut told me this wasn't just some random person in the woods. Something, or someone, was watching us. Out of nowhere, a loud thud shattered the silence, making all three of us jump. For a split second, my brain couldn't even process what I was seeing. Until I realized a large tree branch had been thrown right into the middle of our campfire. Sparks flew and my stomach dropped. One of my friends didn't wait a second. He bolted into the woods, leaving me and my other buddy frozen in disbelief, half laughing and half freaking out, trying to convince ourselves it had to be some stupid prank. But before we could even move, my friend suddenly screamed. This raw, panicked scream, as another branch came flying out of the darkness and smacked him right in the face. That was it. I grabbed the backpack, pulled him to his feet, and we ran like hell. The sound of our shoes crunching through the leaves was drowned out by heavy footsteps following close behind. When we finally reached the road that separated the preserve from campus, we stopped for just a second to catch our breath. That's when we heard it. Footsteps again, slow and deliberate, coming closer from the woods. We didn't even look back. We just took off, sprinting all the way to our dorm, not daring to stop until we were behind a locked door. When we finally got back to our dorm floor, out of breath and still shaking, we found our other friend already in his room. He looked pale, like he'd seen something too. The three of us went to his window and looked out toward the woods, and that's when we saw it. Someone was down there, pacing back and forth near the tree line. Every time a car drove by, they'd step back into the shadows, like they didn't want to be seen. We stood there in silence, just watching, until finally that figure disappeared into the woods and never came back. After a while, we tried to calm down. We cracked open a few more beers, trying to laugh it off, convincing ourselves it was just some random creep messing around. But the next morning, when the adrenaline was gone, the reality of it hit us hard. The idea that someone was out there, watching us, maybe waiting for the right moment, it made my skin crawl. From that night on, none of us ever went back to those woods after dark again. This story takes place during my very first week of freshman year at the University of Iowa. I was still getting used to everything. New school, new people, new roommate. My roommate, though, was already all in on the idea of rushing a fraternity. Rush week was set to start the following week, but the parties were already kicking off that first Thursday. He didn't want to go alone, said it'd be harder to meet people that way, so he asked me to tag along. I didn't really care much about joining a frat, but I figured, why not? It was college, and I was at one of the biggest party schools in the country. His plan was to hit up one frat party on Thursday, then try different ones Friday and Saturday. That Thursday night, we were headed to one of the lower-ranked frats. Honestly, I think it was even an underground one. But his logic was that if the top houses didn't give him a bid, he'd at least have a backup option. The frat house was way off campus, tucked in a sketchy part of downtown. When we got there, I thought, there's no way this was a frat. It looked abandoned, with peeling paint and trash scattered around. But the loud music and parked cars said otherwise. We knocked, and this short, sweaty guy with a solo cup opened the door, grinning weirdly. "Come on in, brothers," he said. The air inside was hot, reeking of beer and something foul. People laughed too loud, and I felt this uneasy chill crawl down my spine. The party was packed into this dark, sweaty living room that smelled like beer and something sour. The lights were barely on, just enough to see about 50 dudes crammed together, most of them shouting over awful music. I think I saw maybe 2 girls the whole night, and neither looked like they wanted to be there. I tried to make small talk, but every guy I met felt off. They were either staring too long or laughing at weird times. After about 20 minutes, I caught my roommate's eye and motioned that we should dip, but a big group of guys blocked the front door, and leaving then would have been way too awkward. So I decided to wait it out, sipping one cheap beer after another until I started to feel a light buzz. Then this heavy guy waddled over with a small glass bottle in his hand. He grinned and said, "This'll get you messed up fast." I laughed it off, thinking it was just a joke, but he didn't leave. He just stood there, watching me. I didn't want to make it weird, so I took the shot. It burned going down, and within seconds, I knew something was wrong. The guy kept talking non-stop, and every time I tried to step away, he'd move closer, pulling me back into this weird, one-sided conversation. His smile didn't look friendly anymore. It felt like he was watching me too closely. My vision started to blur, and everything around me felt hazy. The music got distant, and the room seemed darker with every blink. I remember feeling dizzy, my body heavy, like I was sinking into the floor. That was the last thing I remembered before everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying in a bed in a dark, unfamiliar room. The music was still playing somewhere far away, muffled behind a closed door. My head was pounding, but as my eyes adjusted, I could make out some furniture and a small closet in the corner. That's when panic started to set in. Even over the loud music, I heard this faint crunching sound, like someone stepping on a plastic bag coming from the closet. My heart froze. I stared at the door for a second, waiting to hear it again, and when it did, I didn't think twice. I bolted out of that room and ran down the stairs straight into the packed living room. I spotted my roommate and shoved him toward the front door, pushing past a group of guys who barely even noticed us. Once we got in the car and started driving back to campus, I could finally breathe. I told him I was pretty sure I'd been drugged. He panicked and wanted to call the cops, but I told him not to. It felt useless at that point. Then he asked me, hesitantly, if someone had done anything to me. I checked myself. My clothes were fine, nothing hurt. I didn't think so. When I looked at the time, I realized I had only been unconscious for about 10 minutes. Whatever that guy gave me must have been a weak dose, or maybe I woke up earlier than I was supposed to. Thank God that night ended the way it did, because honestly it could have been so much worse. That whole experience at that sketchy underground frat still gives me chills every time I think about it. I went there expecting a dumb college party and left realizing just how fast things can go wrong. It wasn't just some bad night. It was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. I learned to trust my gut from then on, and if something ever feels off, just leave. No party, no thrill, no college experience is worth risking your safety. During my sophomore year, I got lucky enough to score a single dorm for my first semester. It was tucked away in the corner of the floor, kind of hidden from everyone else. You actually had to turn a corner just to see my door, which made it feel private. Almost too private, honestly. At first I loved it. I could hang out with friends when I wanted, have people over, and still enjoy my own space whenever I needed to focus or crash for the night. It felt perfect. At least, that's what I thought in the beginning. A few weeks into the semester, I was cramming for a bio exam late one night when the silence was broken by this faint tapping sound. At first, I thought I imagined it. It was so light, barely noticeable. Then it came again. Tap, tap, tap. I called out, "Come in!" But the door didn't move. Confused, I got up and opened it. No one was there. The hallway around the corner was empty too. I figured someone was just trying to mess with me, so I shrugged it off and went back to studying, this time leaving the door cracked open just in case. The next night, though, it happened again. I had just turned off my lamp when the noise came back, only louder. Not tapping this time, but knocking. Harder, more deliberate. My stomach dropped. I called out, "Who's there?" But there was only silence. No footsteps, no voice. I jumped out of bed and swung the door open. My little hallway was completely empty. I sprinted to the corner to check the main corridor. Again, nothing. Just the hum of the building and my heart pounding in my ears. The next morning, I asked some of the other kids in the dorm if they had been messing with me. Everyone said no. The next night, I woke up after having been asleep for 3 hours. Someone was knocking on my door again, this time louder than ever. I had trouble deciding whether to open the door or not. This time, with a bout of courage, I hopped up and opened the door. Nobody was there, as I was expecting, but this time I full-on sprinted down the tiny corridor, isolating my room. And when I turned the corner, I saw the back of somebody disappearing behind the far corner on the opposite side of the hallway. I ran as fast as I could down the hallway, and as I turned to the next hallway, where I saw the person a few seconds earlier, I saw a door at the end of the hallway shutting. It wasn't a dorm room. It was a bath. I felt like I was done being scared. Whoever this joker was, I was ready to end it. My heart was pounding as I stormed down the hall and shoved the bathroom door open. It swung so hard it hit the wall. The lights were off. I flicked the switch and the harsh fluorescent light filled the room, revealing nothing. No movement, no sound, just the faint buzz of the lights overhead. My stomach tight. Both bathroom stalls were closed, so I crouched down, peeking under the doors. That's when I saw them. 2 heavy black boots standing perfectly still behind one of the stalls. My pulse spiked. Someone was definitely in there. I swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and shoved the door open. Empty. Just the boots sitting neatly on the floor, but no person wearing them. That's when I heard it. A laugh. a low, broken, creepy laugh echoing through the tiles. It wasn't a kid or a woman. It sounded like an old man, the kind of laugh that crawls right under your skin. Every bit of courage I had instantly vanished. I bolted, sprinting back to my room, slamming the door and locking it tight. I jumped into bed, shaking, texting every friend I could think of. But of course, it was late. No one answered. Then came the knocking again. Slow, deliberate, louder this time. I pulled the blanket over my head and tried to ignore it. It went on for 30 agonizing seconds before finally silence returned. I easily ignored it when my coat rack jammed. If I didn't make a noise, the next day I went around asking everyone on my floor if they'd heard anything that night, but nobody had. Everyone looked genuinely confused, even concerned. They all swore they weren't messing with me, and honestly, I believed them. Whatever was happening, it wasn't a prank. I kept thinking about those boots, that eerie laugh that sounded like it came from someone much older. It still gives me chills just remembering it. By me, who was that person, or was it even a person at all? That thought has haunted me ever since. Thank God that semester eventually ended, but I'll never forget those nights alone in that dorm room. What do you think was behind that knocking? Was it some kind of spirit? Or maybe something worse? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy true horror stories like this, make sure to subscribe and check out the next video, because trust me, the next story is even more chilling.